Hey everybody, Baseline Show once again. It's noon on Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, the year of baselining. And we're here for the monthly General Assembly session. We have Samrat Kishore in the house, co-chair with myself. We have Sonal Patel, Mark Haddle, Keith Salzman, Charles Todd, Anand Natarajan, Yoav Bitton, and Cast of Thousands that you can't actually see because they have their cameras turned off, but they're all on our Zoom, and we'll be going through our normal monthly agenda. Sonal, I think that's your cue. Take it away.
All right. Thank you. So as usual, we'll go through standards updates, outreach team updates, sponsorship, core devs, TSC, and then we'll have an open floor with everybody here for any community, company, or just other topics that we want to chat about. And with that, I will first hand over to Andreas Freund for standards updates. And he may have stepped away. I'll wait a moment.
No, he's... Andreas, you're on mute.
All right, we will come back to Andreas once he's back on camera. And I will then hand over to Mark Haddle for outreach team updates.
Okay, well, it's been fairly active past 2 weeks in the enablement team. We basically put together a presentation that's translatable across several different domains that can be used as presentation within a lot of the call for papers that we're getting from a lot of these events that are now, having been virtual, are now going live, and they're getting overwhelming support because people just want to get out and, see people and interact with others, in a real life environment. So we put that in and submitted that to one already, and now should have a second one that's a little bit more security based. But what we're doing is really, getting out there, talking and telling everybody, this is what baseline is, what it isn't, and this is how it can give real value to what you're doing. And so, to that list, we've got a lot of people, getting together, kind of putting together a lot of the thought pieces. Mark Remza has just put together a blog for the EIF. And that's been very well received. It's really cool, how he kind of blends the technical and the practical real world together. So we encourage a lot more of that. Anybody that wants to, jot down some, just some free associating as far as, what baseline is, we certainly encourage everyone to get involved. And, to that end, we want to, start focusing on putting out, a whole slew of these, thought pieces so that they can be put out, on all the different channels, to reach the widest audience as we can. We got a lot of people that have a tremendous depth of knowledge that has really kind of been within the community here, and we want to expand the reach to get to everyone else. So that's what we've been doing. That's pretty much everything that I've got on my end. Sonal, did you have anything you wanted to add, or is Mark on? And
no, he's not here with us, but thanks for sharing. It seems like the outreach team is well organized now, kind of similar to the organization of the core devs team. And there's actual work groups now focusing on these different items. And we have our research group coming up this week again. We have our enablement group officially kicking off next week, creating persona-based deliverables. So super exciting to see what we'll be able to come up with and what deliverables we'll create for the community.
Mark,
what?
I had one thought, and this is our General Assembly, so I don't want to go into depth on this at all, but I'm going to forget it if I don't bring it up here, so I'm just going to take the risk. It strikes me that I was listening to the Zero Knowledge podcast the other day, as I sometimes do, and it just struck me when you were talking that one of the things we could do as a department or as a team in the outreach is to get really operational about lining up podcast, basically people from our community who can tell the story. Obviously, getting that story nice and succinct, getting the why should you care, the why, what, and how of baselining down, so that a wide array of us can do it, and then lining, basically booking us on, just getting some, a few people together that can make some phone calls and effectively book us on, like Zero Knowledge shows and other kinds of shows. Mm-hmm. That and also starting to book us for corporate activities, I think is a big deal at this point. Is to say, okay, we're going to do. This is one of my first jobs at Consensus. Was, Joe Lubin and the rest of us would go around to sometimes fairly notable organizations, World Bank and stuff like that, and we'd spend the day educating them on blockchain. Mm-hmm. And we could even do, I think we did like mini hackathons, right? Where it wasn't a hackathon like many companies; it was just a single company's sort of thing, and we would basically have a hack day within the company. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, and that's basically, kind of the nucleus behind, why we started looking at doing persona-based thought pieces out there that really speak to, the audience, from sitting in, standing in their shoes. What does this mean for them? I mean, I think a lot of the content that we see out there, I mean, not just in baseline, but in blockchain, to where we're so passionate about it, we start telling everybody about what's so cool about it. And we really, kind of ignore, what value does this bring to your everyday lives? How does it help you make money, save money, or stay out of trouble? Right. Are really kind of the three pillars on that. And what we want to do is, put out, content that is focused on what's being heard. A lot of times we want to be able to, get the non-technical audience, and we don't want to kind of chum up the water with all of this, technical jargon and speak, because, they don't understand it, and, you kind of lose their attention. So we're putting all this stuff together with that very, intent in mind.
I think with the, we've got to spend we have more coming in terms of grant money. Mm-hmm. If somebody, at least I, for one, I don't know if some or the other TSC members feel, but I, for one, would not say vote down a proposal for, hey, we're going to spend some money traveling to this event, or we're going to spend some money, as long as it's not shilling a particular company. That would be you'd have to draw the line there. But if we said, yeah, no, there's this organization or that organization that wants us to, come and do this. We need some travel money. I don't know that that's out of I don't think there's anything in the rule book. There's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball. I'm not sure that there's anything in the rule book that says we can't fund that sort of thing, as long as it's done, carefully.
So long as it's stated within the grant application and it's blessed by the community. I mean, I don't see a problem there. I mean, again, it speaks to getting the message out. I mean, in a focused, concise way.
Yeah, we have to do a better job of empowering everybody as an ambassador to spread the word, right? And John, I love the idea about making the rounds at on all the talk shows. Why not? It's an easy way to spread the word. I mean, people are curious about what we're doing, and they're even more curious when they find out how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll mint a baseline NFT token for anybody that gets on the Daily Show first.
A 4910, of course.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, of course. Hashtag 4910. Yes. Hashtag 4910.
Hashtag 4910.
I think, John, it might also be useful, John and Mark, to have people from the user side come and talk about their issues, especially with multi-party coordination, because sometimes I feel that it's difficult for people on the other side to understand blockchain technology, especially if you say blockchain or distributed ledger. They kind of shut off. Yeah. Well, anything referencing those things, that just shuts them off, right? But also, for this community, right, it would be good to hear from the entities, companies, firms, etc., in supply chains and so on, that would need this coordination, right, to listen to them articulate their use cases.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, mainly because a lot of those, it's actually almost surprising when you start to on closer examination, that a lot of these, process environments rely so heavily on Excel. I mean, even in ocean cargo shipping, in real estate, financial management, as far as managing the debt and everything, it's all done on in these, massive Excel spreadsheets that can be 400 rows and 2,000 columns. I mean, that are just so unwieldy. And, when you're starting to reconcile them with counterparties, moving that large of a file becomes so problematic. That wouldn't it be better if they just stay where they are, but you can prove a consistency between the two? That's really some low-hanging fruit that we have right now, that goes across so many different industry domains. I mean, supply chain, yes, but I mean, even supply chain has, a whole, so many branches to it and everything, and they all use Excel. And
quick shout out to Andreas Freund and the L2 standards body. Andreas, was this what we were talking about today? Or can we make an Excel spreadsheet in L2 with the?
Well, if you want to sell it, sure. I think that all joking aside, how about getting someone from CBP on the show, or from the Los Angeles Port
Authority?
I think,
yeah.
I think that
also
would be
Flexport. The guys from Flexport would be good. The guy that did that 60 Minutes article on supply chain disruptions.
We got
to build a ground game. Is my point.
There was an article in the Stanford Law Journal about how you can put these international trade flows right on a distributed ledger. So when a cargo moves from port to port, right? I mean, you don't have multiple forms. You have one, certificate or something about what is in, like a, shipment or something like that, right? That can be referenced by multiple authorities across borders and so on.
Oh yeah, FedEx.
So yeah, there's a lot of people.
FedEx will tell you, yeah, sure, we have that. Use our blockchain.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem, is the scalability of the existing solutions. I think that's the narrative that we should go after. Like, people that have been building these private permission blockchains, get them in here. And I think we should have a healthy debate about.
Are there any left?
Unfortunately, there's still. Corda's hanging on.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, Corda's
not a blockchain.
Got a whole different thing. Really, they're a messaging system.
Right.
We could, of course, baseline a private permission implementation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the thing about the private permission thing is it's not going to fly, right? For a lot of these use cases, like borderless transactions, governments would not want to rely on, private platforms, etc. So again, that's kind of like a case for using a public ledger to store this kind of information.
Yeah. So the main argument of the CBP against using like the FedEx chain was that they will never ever run Node, but unless they hold the data, they don't believe you. So it's a chicken and the egg problem. And
I'm still reminded of all the times I was talking to enterprises like that, or when we actually built an in production or pseudo in production private blockchain, and I think some people I know and some of my old team, really figured out how to use the word production liberally. It used to mean something in the 80s. But yeah, so in production blockchain implementations where I'm like, well, where are all your nodes? Oh, well, they're in our server farm. And I'm like, we have 4 of them. And I'm like,
4?
Yeah. And they're, like, well, you're serving a bunch of banks, do they want their own nodes? And they're like, yes, they do. And I'm like, well, what's the problem? They're like, well, the problem is none of them want any of the other banks to have one. I'm like, okay, there you go. There's your problem.
Don't you fundamentally need to have an odd number of servers anyway for consensus?
No.
To break ties?
Well, okay, so it's like,
all right, we're going to be in the weeds.
If you're
rabbit hole, yeah.
If you're in L2, one that is highly sharded, aka runs in parallel, is perfectly fine. there's no issue with that. In fact, if you want, you can do, a whole bunch of FPGA boards, and they all do that really, really well. And you can, that can be an L2. It's like, as long as it executes and it anchors properly on the L1. That's all. It's like there are many ways to skin that cat. The key point is that you cannot lock me out ever, right? That's the main point. It's like, that's why banks are problematic, because they can lock you out. But if you have a bank on an L2, they can't lock you out, because you can always take your assets and run.
That actually is kind of interesting. All right, Sonal, I've taken us far afield. If you want to get us back.
Andreas, that's kind of one of the most key points to all this whole movement and shift that we're seeing, and the enablement of Web3, and the centralization of what the banks do. I think that's one of the key things to this entire movement, and one of the things that personally fires me most up about this shift that we are all part of in producing.
Awesome. Yes, we'll have more time too at the end, probably, to discuss all these things. Yes. All right. So thank you, Mark, for those updates and all the conversations that came afterwards. Really quickly, I'll just provide some website metrics from our last Google Analytics report. So from April 5th through April 24th, we had 914 users on the site, with 844 being new users, with 1,131 sessions. Our Amster-based page had 595 views. Our main page had 533, and our Get baseline had 66. So it's just super exciting to be able to track these metrics since the launch of our new site. And that was in about a 3-week period. So very exciting to see the traction we get.
Who did the work on that to enable the analytics?
Yes. So Boy, who is the grant recipient and did the web development, he also set this up with the Oasis team. So now we get these reports about every 2 weeks. Awesome. All right. Yes. And with that, I will hand over to you, Carol, for sponsorship or other related updates.
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't have any new sponsors to announce this month, but we are working on following up from a lot of good leads that we got from the Amster-based conference. So in terms of attendees as well as speakers. And I'm going to attend the next go-to-market group and try to see how we can put together some campaign ideas to go after some companies and leverage some of the materials that group has just produced that Mark was talking about. And we have a couple of big conferences that Oasis will be at, or Oasis people. We've got the RSA Security Conference next month, but we'll be there, and a lot of the TC's work sort of spills over. So we'll be trying to promote what we can. And I know the Open Source Summit is in Austin next month, and Sonal and perhaps some others will be there. So we're going to try to arrange whatever we can in terms of putting together some interviews or meetings with prospective sponsors or influential people, press.
Awesome. Thank you.
I got one question there. Oh, I'm full of questions today. Carol, do we have? I think the next PGB meeting is coming up, and I think one of the big things that we're finally going to get done is the approvals on grants coming from non-sponsors, right? And also along with that, it is now possible to make grants in crypto. Do you have any report on that? I think it's you're on deck to provide the final language to the PGB. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe I have provided the final language, and so I think they're going to vote on it.
Great. So that Sonal and everybody, once that's approved, we can light up. We can take the Open Collective donation page and surface it right to the front of the, in the appropriate place and way on the website. And we should be letting people know that they can actually donate in various kinds of crypto.
Yeah.
I think just for awareness, and again, this has not been approved yet, but this is the language that is going to the PGB, is effectively that there's a percentage. If you're not a sponsor of the EEA Open Community Projects org, then then your donation will, I think some percentage of it will go to effectively sponsorship funds, and the rest of it will be used for grants.
Yeah, that's right. And if you are a sponsor, then 100% of whatever, in addition to your sponsorship dues, goes to funding the core services for the project.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
And over to you, Yoav, for core dev updates.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just going to start by touching on Amster-based, like Carol just mentioned, and John as well. So for anyone who doesn't know, Amster-based was a baseline protocol centered event that took place as part of the overall Dev Connect event in Amsterdam. This was our kind of first baseline protocol in-person event, which took place April 20th. We sold out the event. Over 200 tickets were sold or given. And at the event, we had 4 speakers from various sponsoring companies that were also baseline related. And their speaks were all kind of interweaving what they were up to with how it works to introduce baseline to what they were doing. It was also live streamed, and a recording of that stream is available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/baseline protocol. And also, as part of the Amster-based event, that was the in-person event, there was also a 6-week-long virtual dev event that we called the Blip Bounty Hunt. And that started 3 weeks before the in-person event and is still open going until May 11th. So for anybody who is still interested in getting involved in baseline and hasn't yet seen this, it's basically an event that allows you to pick up these open blips, which is a baseline improvement proposal, and get to work on them. So they're all just various implementations. Some are kind of looser than other. The idea is that you can read through it and kind of carve your own path for how you think it should look, and then propose a grant for it and get to work on it. So that May 11th date is not a hard cutoff. That was just kind of to make the event 6 weeks long and centered around Dev Connect, but in no way are these blips going to disappear just because May 11th passes. So if you're already working on one or are interested in picking one up, don't feel like that is a hard cutoff for you. It's okay if you go any time past that. So yeah, that's Amster-based. I'm going to cover quickly some blip updates as well. And these are all things that were discussed in our core devs meeting. So blip 11 is centered around cleaning up the repo and the docs. The initial work was done on this blip to determine that the docs were the main focus of this blip. That's where the majority of the work should be done. And with that being the top priority, it has been underway to consolidate the files, clean up the docs, and make sure everything is kind of a good, easy source of truth. And that project is nearing its completion.
Yes, I'm pretty much done, actually. I went through all of the doc pages with Keith's help on the technical components, and the final step, based on my conversations with the Oasis team, is any major material changes, which there aren't any really, but anything that removes governance that is not being followed anymore, like stuff about the previous bootstrapping period or just outdated material that's being removed. I'm just putting it into a document so the PGB can review and sign off on that change occurring. So our docs will be refreshed hopefully next week, and they'll be completely up to date with how our org functions, as well as the technical resources that exist, what the status of them are, and they'll just still remain as the one-stop shop for those visiting the baseline page and wanting to read up on how everything works. So almost done, super excited for that.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank you, Sana.
You have one quick question. Can you also mention where do people have to go for this, for participating in the Blip Bounty Hunt?
Yeah, for sure.
Just
So
post a link.
yeah, I'll put a link in the YouTube chat, but all information regarding Amster-based, our event, both online and offline, can be found at baseline-protocol.org/Amster-based. There's a link in the YouTube chat. And also, if you check out our GitHub repo, there is a blips repo in the Oasis org. And there you can find the issues tab and find all of the open blips that are available to be picked up, reviewed, worked on. So yeah, with that, I'll move on to blip 6, which is the monolithic test suite. This one's been discussed in the past as well. The work is still wrapping up, just a couple more loose ends that the team are kind of working towards. And as that wraps up and is fully completed, it's going to transition itself into the simple reference implementation, or the SRI, which is kind of the priority 1 of the baseline roadmap for the year. So that's the 2 blips I wanted to discuss. I also wanted to cover something else we talked about in the core dev meeting, which is the future of our dev events. I think the blip bounty hunt was a success. I think it was a good idea. And I'm glad we got to toy with all of these blip ideas and really get the kind of community involved in coming up with different implementations. I think the downside of the blip bounty hunt is that it doesn't address one of the issues of creating a baseline implementation, which is that the barrier of entry is quite high, since you have to have a pretty solid understanding of the whole standard and kind of its technical intricacies. So the idea was for future events to create some sort of baseline workshop that would allow users to go kind of step by step and follow a guide that, by completing this workshop would allow them to create some sort of implementation, something like maybe Battleship, we could have them walk through step by step, or whatever the SRI becomes could be a pretty good baseline, could be a pretty good kind of starting point. And then the idea is from there, you finish the workshop, you create this starting point project, and then you turn that into whatever your grand idea is. And that would be your submission for the hackathon, or whatever we're going to call it. So that's kind of the
can we just get
idea.
that done? I'm getting frustrated with people's legitimate reaction that this is complicated, that they don't understand it. What is this? I'm just getting tired of it, and it's unnecessary. I wrote a tweet. It's still at the top of my Twitter thing. There's 6 things involved. 4 of them solidly, and maybe 5 if you're an IT professional, you do every day. It's not hard. The one thing that you have to kind of get your head around is zero-knowledge circuits, and you don't even need those for every single particular use case that's baselining. And if you do need them, here's the black box that you just put the inputs and outputs from. You don't have to actually know zero-knowledge cryptography math. So I'm getting weary of the "this is complicated" story. It's not. I mean, it's complicated in that it's computer science, but and engineering. But if you're an engineer, you should not be sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is daunting." And if that's the case, then we're doing a terrible job explaining this stuff. So yes, let's please fix that now.
Yeah, and I think if we had a workshop and it's however many pages of steps, 2 or 3 pages, you follow the steps, you write some code, it would really illuminate how easy it can be.
Yeah, I think there might be an underlying need for some. It is a natural thing if you're making something to say, hey, this is really complicated, but but here, use my thing because it'll make it easy, right? No, it's not. It's not hard. It's not complicated. You can still use the thing that makes it even easier, but don't be scared off by somebody saying, hey, you need me because this is hard. Let's make sure that that's not a story that gets out there. Sorry, I off my soapbox now. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Definitely. And that workshop is something that we would love to have built. This could be something community driven. It could become a grant or a blip. Otherwise, it's something that we'll try to work on internally.
You could even open up
that's
like the space, like our space to build, and have our own kind of steps course to build implementation, and then anybody else who has their steps to build an implementation, they can add it into. And you're looking at all the different ones. It's like a space in which you can build things.
Wow, that sounds familiar. What an excellent idea. Definitely. I think there are a lot of, especially with, the community that we have here, I think there are a lot of ways we could get a lot of very talented people involved and create something pretty quickly that would add a lot of value to the protocol.
Awesome.
Another thing I wanted to touch on, or another thing that should be discussed, is zero knowledge in general and Z Prize. And Keith, if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Problem, yes. I have zero knowledge at the end. No, so I brought this up in the core devs meeting. In Amsterdam, at the ZK Summit, there was an announcement. I'm not sure it was the first announcement, but just like X Prize, now we have Z Prize. If you just go to zprize.io, you can check it out. Millions of dollars in funding from all kinds of different partners like Aleo, Anoma, Polygon, Mina, Aztec, everything. And if you just go and check it out, go to the different prizes they have, like for example, I'm on there right now. If I go to one of the things they want is like accelerating Plonk WASM. You hit more info and it's just like pretty simple. This prize is awarded to the fastest WebAssembly prover implementation for the Plonk Hub proof system. So, just whoever's got the fastest one, 500K right there. But yeah, it's all geared towards just this collaborative effort to through all these like 32 partners and sponsors, just to push forward, zero knowledge and accelerate it. So check it out.
There's also the L2 Rollathon from Gitcoin. Right, if you're a ZKP fanatic and you think you can best the likes of SSEC and Starkware, it's like by all means, it's a super high visibility hackathon. And if you want to sharpen your ZKP skills and learn from the best of the best, go there. I can only encourage participation there, even if it's just for learning. I think it's great. So this is a follow on to the Reddit Bake Off from last year. What was it, 2020? Forgot. So long in the past.
Awesome. Thank you for all those updates. Anything else, Yoav?
I think that covers my core dev updates for this month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Samrat, I will hand over to you for any TSC updates.
So I think one portion which sort of overlaps with what Yoav was just talking about is also the reinstatement of the research meetings. We've also been having those brainstorming sessions, right? So do you want to talk a little about that as well, Keith, Yoav? Meetings focused on brainstorming and research. We found many blips in there, right? Hey, what are you doing, man? You unmuted.
Sorry, what did you say? I don't know.
So we reinstated those meetings, right? So
Yes.
is there something you want to talk about? I think we should invite more people and participation in those meetings.
Research?
The research focused meetings.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention we kicked that back off. I think originally we didn't have a super clear focus. We do have a really good group though, and it keeps expanding. Some others have reached out to me, and Now our objectives, at least to start, are going to be compiling a repository of just topics. So it could be anything. It doesn't have to follow certain guidelines, but it could be just like, what about researching this exact thing related to baselining, as well as starting to collect any research materials that aren't baseline focused, but they're baseline adjacent. They're revolving the same technologies or the same problems. So now we're going to have an objective of the group, as well as we start working together, we can form the next steps. One of the baseline community members, Kaushik, he is with Masari now, and he's a research analyst. So he'll be joining us on, he's super cool. I met him through the IU Blockchain Club when I spoke there, and he's taking a gap year to just research DeFi and things full time, and he's loving it. So he'll be helping lead our research group. And on Thursday, he will cover just kind of an overall walkthrough on formulating good research topics, finding good resources, and just like how to start from square one. So super excited for this group now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, and that was something which I wanted to mention about today. I don't have any updates from the TSC perspective. We are re-looking at some rules in the rule book. But yeah, once that is ratified, we will release it for everybody. And John, I liked your proposal about setting aside some funds for conducting focus groups and those sessions. I think that I love that idea, because that is something that was sort of the missing link, and that's I have personally tried calling a lot of people on the show, or even if they have been on the show and they've sort of maybe 10-15% understood what baselining is. Where we lack is really following up with them and sort of seeing it through, to the extent that they allocate resources and start baselining.
In the early days, we had some really great players that were very focused on education and on, they were consulting firms, right? They were based on, they did back in the first year, all these educational, but we weren't ready for that, right? We were still, or rather it was great. We were ready, but we weren't, it wasn't mature enough for them to turn that into deal flow.
Yeah.
I think that's changed now. Unfortunately, they kind of petered out from that. So maybe companies like Envision can and others can, and frankly TCS and Accenture and other majors at this point.
Yeah.
If they don't see a direct path from a session with a company about how to do better information security for multi-party automation, then anybody that doesn't see that should probably be replaced with somebody that does, because they're leaving money on the table.
TCS doesn't go to the bathroom until they can come back with a $20 million deal. So it's like,
there's always somebody in a company in a major consulting firm that says, well, when our customers ask for it, we'll do that. And then there's somebody else, thank God, in that same company that says, I'm going to get the customer to ask for that. And if it weren't for those guys, the former guys wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I think is going to be really interesting is with some of these work group efforts that are really going to kick off, and we have some key leaders in the community who will be leading them. But I mentioned this in the outreach work group is some of us here are part of an EEA work group. I'm the chair of it, if anybody wants to join, called Ethereum Training Quality. And we're curating resources that kind of set the standard of quality materials in the Web3 space to help like filter out the noise and such. But part of one of the meetings we recently had, Heather Flannery was there, and she was mentioning what really resonates when she's having these talks with the CEOs and how just all these different personas. And I'm really excited to bring some of those findings to the enablement work group, because one of the outcomes is like currently some of these pitch decks we're making, you're not going to show a 20 slide deck to a CEO. You're going to show a one pager that has the numbers. How much will you save? How does it work? What are the security concerns or benefits? And like, that's it. And for these consulting firms, if you show them, we're going to help you meet your revenue metrics. And here's a way you can provide this solution to your clients. So super excited to kind of piece together some of these different efforts.
Yeah.
So
There's
on the
definitely
consulting
revenue
firm,
waiting for you.
sorry, on the consulting firm side, find a client partner, right, who's a little bit innovative, and make him a rock star by increasing his or her deal flow. That's it. And then everybody is going to hop on that bandwagon because everybody's bonus is tied to deal flow. And if the other guy takes off, they don't get the Bermuda vacation because they weren't the one with the biggest deal flow. And they do want that Bermuda vacation. I'll tell you that.
And there's such an opportunity for some of these consulting partners to be at the forefront of the enablement of like a particular connecting system, whether that's SAP, whether that's ServiceNow. There's such a massive opportunity for these partners to be like the consulting partner that is driving that forth for these major platforms.
And actually with that, I'll also add an update. We talk about this in our outreach group. There's a lot happening there for anyone who's interested. But we are working on that analyst report with the IDC. And I've been kind of maintaining that relationship, and they're putting together the proposal for this study that they would do that highlights the problems that Baseline would solve, and also that other solutions or companies might be interested in, because I think the path forward will be having a multi-party funded report. So any of the companies watching or people here who represent their companies could be part of this study. And hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll have a really solid piece that has all the numbers behind it on cost savings and such. And that'll be a huge driver with the enablement content. It'll be kind of the missing link.
Absolutely.
Hey, Sonal, on that, did you were you able to figure out how to tin cup it, or are we going to have to like do a grant funding campaign so that we can fund it out of the grant out of a single check?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a large number if we do it with those guys or others, and I mean, it would definitely break the bank on the current grant money. And I have to, I still think that a lot of folks that have nothing to do with any of this want this study. I mean, you know, if you're in automation at, you know, like my old boss, Jerry Cuomo, he's like doing a lot in just automation. I think he would want to know, how much are people spending on multi-party automation?
Mm-hmm.
So that is a good point. Also a good point is, are you going to pop in like $5,000 and get your name featured on the report? Or do you wait and then spend $5,000 to buy the report because your boss tells you to get it? Right? It's that, and it's literally, how do you want to spend the $5,000? Right? Do you want to spend the $5,000 and get featured, or spend the $5,000 afterwards? Right? And it's like that's basically it, right? Because that's what the reports cost, right? When you go to IDC, there are like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on their size and effort. So, you know, it's literally, that would be my argument to everyone. It's like, can be, you know, it can be as little as how much you would pay for the report, and you get featured.
But will they do that? What's the answer? So I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm working through it with our contact, and we're really just putting together a list of companies that would be interested, because these are things that they're trying to highlight as well. And I think so far we have like 15 companies on the list. And as I'm showing like the connections on why this company would be interested, and a lot of them are our sponsors to begin with, they're going through their list of existing clients that they create reports for to then contact as well. So it's going to be a joint effort with the IDC team, something that's super cool. Exciting. And John, you know, you've been in these meetings, but they have multiple IDC execs from all sorts of departments across the organization, like analytics, information management, financial insights, data as a service, geospatial intelligence, all these different areas coming together and interested in this report. So it's really cool, because I think this level of customization and what we're asking for or hoping to find, there was a kind of a slim chance. I reached out to other companies as well, and they're like, we have no idea what you're saying. But we got together with IDC, and they're really interested in this effort. So I think it'll be a big win for the community.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome updates, Sonal. I think one last thing which I wanted to highlight is also our intent to, allocate some budget for social media management. That's again a key outreach activity. Writing the right blog post at the right time, posting on social media, having consistent messaging. And that's key. Consistent and timely messaging is very key. So we're going to have something on that on those lines as well.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, one last point. The integration of DITs and VCs into digital asset wallet, which is important. That is that grant has been approved. Please put in your proposals. So that's really important. It's useful beyond the ecosystem. So just from a TSC point of view, so that's good to go. I will. So Sonal, just really quick, moving on because I need to drop in 2 minutes. I apologize that I wasn't there to give the standards update. There was a bird that flew in the house, and my daughter had a screaming fit that was after discovering bugs in the pantry this morning. So it was a slightly emotionally riven morning at my house. So I apologize for being late. Do you want me to give the 30 seconds update on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 30-second update. PGB still hasn't figured out what the requirements are to become a, let alone draft standard. Project draft standard is like a specification, let alone project specification. Well, we're getting there, as standards bodies take their time. This takes also time. So, I presume in about 3 months, we'll be ready, given everybody's calendar. So hopefully we'll by then we'll be able to have the current release at a level where we need where we can move this to a project specification draft. We have been working on that. Issues have been addressed in PRs. There's still one open PR for improvements. Please, guys, read and comment and raise issues. Because we need to get this ready. And if you have any referenceable implementations, please let us know so we can put that in, because that is a requirement for the project specification. We need to have 2 at least production implementations that are provably standard compliant. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope no more living creatures interfere on your day.
Oh,
right.
I'm sure they will. They're called my children. But besides that, I hope not. I got the bird out without harm to either the bird or anyone or anything else.
Well, thank you so much.
So you vanquished all the monsters, as is proper for any dad.
I don't know, vanquishing. I banned them from the kingdom.
Excommunicado.
Thank you, Andreas.
All right. Cheers, guys. Love you all. Bye.
Love you too.
Love you too.
All right. So we do have 5 minutes left for our open floor now.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you guys think that bird was after the bugs in the pantry?
I'm curious.
Or were the bugs after the bird?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Or is there a third creature out there?
I don't know. It sounds like the edibles are kicking in, Keith.
Oh, you're feeling it too?
Keith's still getting through his Amsterdam supply. All right. With that, any other topics or ideas, questions from the group here, or company updates from their organizations?
Just one thing that I've just noticed by watching everything, it is astonishing how much money is being thrown at Web3, NFT, type enabled projects that really do not have that much. I mean, I can't see a path to success, but these things are raising obscene amounts of money at these, lofty, valuations. And I'm like, where are they getting all of this? I mean, I just thought Yuga Labs, which is the one, behind Bored Apes and, various different projects, I mean, just raised $450 million on an $8 billion valuation. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they have one thing.
It's all about who you know, right?
I'm sorry?
In fact,
It's pretty much who you know, and I guess, yeah, carry on.
yeah, who you know, who you can call. But I'm actually waiting to hear from DevConnect guys how much fund was raised during that week.
Yeah.
They will publish
Yeah,
it.
well, the point, yeah, carry on, Samrat.
No, just saying they will publish it eventually, because I do hear from people there were deals made.
Yeah, but actually, I think the point to what Mark said is basically that, Baseline and projects like Baseline are far more important than the typical NFT project out there. But the NFT projects can raise hundreds of millions of dollars. But we are looking at few 10,000 here, 100,000 there, so on. So why that disconnect? It's kind of like it's inversely proportional to the importance of your work, your ability to fundraise.
Because enterprises are slow to move. Just bottom line,
Point.
it's a much longer tailwind with these enterprises that we're building these relationships with. I mean, you can see it. I say this often. There's still so many long-standing enterprises that haven't even modernized their cloud, their data into the cloud.
Yeah, they haven't. That's a good point.
Effort yet, let alone embarking on this journey, even though what it can enable, and those that are most innovative, and it's all our jobs to keep pulling them into the fold and seeing the value, but they're just slow to move. It's like,
yeah. And that's probably why John's so keen on this education thing, right? And that's a good point you made, because one of, like I've been working on project management, right? And that's kind of like a important multi-party workflow, which a huge, amount of inefficiency. I mean, trillions of dollars lost, etc. Right? Massive problem. But the thing is, these guys are just starting to move to the cloud. I mean, so they're kind of behind by so much, that you kind of have to leapfrog them,
absolutely
beyond the cloud almost, take them from these legacy systems into something like this, right? Distributed systems, maybe without even having to go through the cloud ecosystem first, So that's probably what the challenge is for us.
We've said that so many times, but that's one of the beautiful things about what we're doing here is the fact that they can do that all within their traditional systems of record, within their traditional, on-prem databases. We can kind of enable that right out of the box, and organizations, there's all that investment pooling into, NFTs and all these other different facets of the Web3 ecosystem. But this is the opportunity for enterprises to get, to really get involved and start driving some significant change. Because personally, I do believe that this is going to be the most significant evolution within Web3 across the enterprise that we will come to see, but time will tell.
Yeah.
Well, let me kind of frame it this way, right? So basically, I know so many companies, big companies that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars each year to move legacy systems into the cloud. Now, we need to kind of short circuit that and get them into Web3, right? Because, these guys are already behind the curve, by trying to, and they have a lot of reservations about the cloud in any case, because they're really afraid of moving the data into systems that they do not control. And often that is quite well justified as well. So we need to kind of tell them, you don't need to move fully into the cloud. The cloud has its space, but you can still retain a lot of your systems, and we will allow you to coordinate across, company, organizational, whatever boundaries, without having to get to, move all of your data into the cloud. And I think that's kind of a key thing we need to, focus on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and a couple of other rumblings that I keep hearing about that is Ethereum's expensive to transact. I mean, just, I had a neighbor says it cost me $18 to move $200 from my, from one wallet to another. That should actually be just because, just in the transaction cost. And, he was on one that, definitely had layer 2s and shardings and all that other stuff. And it was still just so expensive. Another thing that I'm starting to see out there is you're seeing a lot of emergence of these very light, tidy layer 1s that really are not as computationally costly or difficult, I guess. And this is for metaverse, mainly because I don't think you could really build an effective metaverse on Ethereum just because of the transaction costs. So they're looking at these light layer 1s that decouple the consensus from the transaction environment, that sort of stuff. And I'm wondering if that's going to start to kind of drive a lot of the projects going forward, saying, why do we need to use Ethereum? And I'm like,
that's the whole value, because it's the settlement layer. That's where these DeFi assets are ultimately going to settle within the Ethereum network. I mean, that's why Provide has been so focused on the EVM and within the Ethereum ecosystem, because most of the enterprises that we're building with are focused on looking to settle these assets within Ethereum. And that goes to the whole premise of this roll-up centric architecture. From a Provide perspective, we use Provide network as the layer 3. We roll up from there to Polygon, roll up from there, and then settle on Ethereum. It's a way of which to offsetting the high computational and transaction costs that will arise by the many processes that are ultimately, baseline and synchronized, utilizing this.
Oh. Just rumblings what we're seeing in the in the community of communities.
Yeah, you see it, and there's going to be value to them all, but you're seeing you saw the hype within Solana, and then what's recently transpired there at Solana. There are trade-offs that have been taken, and not so much necessarily within the Ethereum ecosystem as it relates to the decentralization being always up, always on. And for that reason, it's gained that level of trust from the enterprises that want to ultimately settle these assets.
Yeah, but I think that this is a worthwhile conversation for the group that we should have a very clear narrative on. Importance to moving to proof of stake and the impact of economics, because as Mark pointed out, the economics at the transaction layer, especially for an enterprise, that adds up really quick when you're talking about billions of transactions between an ERP system and a front office CRM, for example, right? We have to have a very clear message around being able to contain that cost, regardless of the settlement layer, Jack. Like this is something that can't be minimized. This is probably the biggest obstacle in our way for adoption.
And within the Provide network, we just introduced our new gas token, our native gas token to the network, PRVG, the Provide gas token. And that will be leveraged to effectively do exactly that, Charles. And, it's a way of, we've talked about this time and time again. It's a way of which to give them a forecastable, predictable monthly bill that will, kind of t-shirt size, small, medium, large, as far as this is what you can expect on a monthly basis, just like an AWS bill, and over time that will grow and organizations will gain more comfort from that bill growing to a couple hundred to 1,000 to tens of thousands, and that's just ultimately
maybe that's part of the genesis of this. We need to have a better clarity on the things that like you guys have been working on in isolation, because the more that we all understand, the alternate approaches and are on the same page with this, the better we can effectively communicate and attract people into using the right technology and the right partners, given the right job at hand.
Right. That's right.
All right. I hate to cut you guys off, but we
are over
5 minutes over time. So
you can't stop us, Yoav.
I think this is an excellent discussion that people should tune into on our next live show to hear the rest of. Thank you, Keith.
Birds.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody who joined.
Cheers, everyone.
Appreciate it.